After letting my wife's parents stay in my art studio for the winter, I dropped by one weekend and found my name erased from every wall, file, and photo. We made a few changes, her father said. My wife just smiled and said, "It's still family space." That night, I dug out the deed and sent it to her uncle they never saw coming. I never minded doing things alone. Solitude made sense to me in a world that rarely did. That's why I bought the Tulsa Loft, a quiet, paint-splattered corner of the city that asked nothing from me but creativity. My name is Logan. I'm 42 years old, and I work as a technical field engineer based out of Wichita, Kansas. My wife, Darcy, is 39. She works part-time as a nutritionist, though works might be generous. She's more of a wellness dabbler, consulting here and there, posting smoothie bowls on Instagram. We've been married 5 years. The loft had nothing to do with her. I bought it 2 years before we met, cashed in a bonus from a long overseas contract, and poured it into this little urban studio space down in Tulsa. I used to drive down on weekends just to sit in front of the big windows and sketch for hours. Concrete floors, brick walls, a creaky pull-out couch, and peace. It was mine. Still is. At least, it was. The trouble started late last winter. We were curled up on the couch watching a nature documentary, Darcy half asleep with a bowl of popcorn in her lap, when her phone lit up. She glanced at it, and her face shifted in that way that tells you something's wrong before they even open their mouth. "It's my mom," she said. "They're getting evicted." Her voice cracked a little, and I paused the TV. Again, Edwin hasn't paid rent in 3 months. And now they're saying they have to be out by Friday. Edwin, Darcy's father, is the type of man who wears big ideas like cologne. Serial entrepreneur, failed visionary, consultant with no clients. Her mother, Miriam, calls herself a lifestyle blogger, though she mostly reposts quotes over pictures of empty coffee mugs. I sighed. What about Miriam's side of the family? Can they stay there? They've asked. No one's biting. Darcy wiped her face with her sleeve, and her voice dropped. "Logan, I know it's a lot, but could they stay in the loft? Just for the winter? It's sitting empty anyway." I sat there for a while, staring at the TV. I thought about the space. My art supplies tucked in milk crates. My sketches rolled up in the corner like forgotten blueprints of my own sanity. I thought about Edwin stepping across that paint-stained floor in his leather loafers, criticizing the lighting. I thought about Miriam burning sage and calling it a creative cleanse. But I looked at Darcy, red eyes, hands twisting her hoodie sleeve, and I nodded. Fine, but just until spring. And I'm drawing up a simple agreement. It'll clarify ownership. I don't want any misunderstandings. She gave a watery smile and nodded. Of course. It's still your place. We signed the paper that weekend. I made a few bullet points, nothing dramatic, just a record stating that they were staying rent-free by permission only. No transfer of rights, no permanent residency. Darcy barely read it. She never liked the loft. Said the exposed brick gave her headaches. And maybe that should have told me something. But back then, I thought we were just different people with different tastes. I had no idea I was handing over the first tool in a slow, calculated heist. I hadn't been back to the loft in nearly 4 months. Work had been busy, back-to-back site inspections, a few late-night emergency calls from clients, the kind of grind that makes you forget you even have hobbies. One Thursday in early April, I found myself staring at my sketchbook in the garage and realizing it had been collecting dust for too long. I missed the scratch of pencil on paper. I missed the silence of that little corner in Tulsa. So I packed a duffel bag and left right after work Friday evening, not bothering to tell Darcy. She was meeting a friend for some biome wine pairing workshop, whatever that meant. I figured I'd get to the loft by 10, crash on the couch, and wake up early to sketch while the city was still quiet. But when I pulled up to the building, something was off. First, the lights. All the windows lit up like a showroom, curtains wide open. The industrial-style ones I'd picked out were gone, replaced with some kind of soft pink fabric that looked like it belonged in a baby shower. Then the keypad. A brand new digital keypad was mounted beside the door where my old brass lock used to be. I reached for my key out of habit anyway, but of course, it didn't fit. I tried the handle. Locked. I stood there for a beat, breathing in slowly through my nose, telling myself there had to be a reason. That's when the door swung open. Edwin stood there in a charcoal robe, a glass of red wine in one hand and a smirk on his face. "Oh, Logan. Didn't expect you," he said, taking a lazy sip. "Thought you were still on site in Wichita." "I was," I said evenly. "I wanted to spend the weekend sketching. Figured I'd come down." He nodded slowly, like I was a guest at a dinner party he didn't remember inviting. Right. Well, we've done a little updating. Come in." I stepped inside and stopped dead. It looked nothing like my place. My drafting table was gone. My sketches? Nowhere in sight. The shelves had been filled with knickknacks and mason jars full of buttons. There were string lights across the ceiling, a vintage record player in the corner, and throw pillows with glitter riding on the couch. I took a few more steps, heart pounding. On the desk, my old metal one from the storage room, sat a thick binder. I opened it. Shared studio management plan. The cover read in floral font. Inside were printed pages outlining usage schedules, decoration plans, and a list of ownership stakeholders. Under the section titled Primary Proprietor, only one name was listed, Darcy Blake. Not me. Darcy walked in from the back room just then, hair in a braid, yoga mat tucked under one arm. She blinked like she hadn't expected me to show up either. "Logan," she said casually. "You made it. You could have called." "What is this?" I asked, holding up the binder. She shrugged. "Just something we put together for clarity. Don't worry, it's still all in the family." I stared at her. No apology. No explanation. Just a breezy smile and a line I couldn't quite believe I was hearing. Still in the family. Like that was supposed to make it okay. Like I hadn't just walked into my sanctuary and found it scrubbed of me entirely. I didn't say a word on the drive home. 3.5 hours of silence, broken only by the occasional hiss of my old truck's tires on the asphalt. I kept replaying it all in my head. Edwin's smug sip of wine, Darcy's nonchalance, the binder with my wife's name stamped on something she didn't own. Every second of that weekend visit looped behind my eyes like a movie I didn't want to watch again. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I wasn't even angry. Just quiet. Darcy wasn't home yet. Probably still at her sister's, where she went after I left Tulsa without a word. The house was spotless, as usual. The air smelled like lavender and eucalyptus, like a place where no one expected anything to be wrong. I went straight to the office and pulled out the fire-safe box tucked behind the filing cabinet. Inside was the original deed to the loft, my name alone printed in bold, legal ink. Beneath it, the written agreement I'd made them sign that winter. Nothing fancy, just a basic statement spelling out that Edwin and Miriam were temporary guests, staying rent-free by my permission only. Signatures, dates, a copy of my license. All of it was there. Black and white, clear as day. I scanned everything into a single PDF. Then I wrote a short letter. No accusations. No threats. Just facts. I addressed it to Victor Blake, Darcy's uncle, a corporate attorney based in Tulsa, estranged from the family for years after some kind of bad blood with Edwin. I'd only met him twice, but I remembered his handshake, dry, strong, and no nonsense. The kind of guy who didn't speak unless it was necessary. He wasn't someone you'd call unless you were serious. I typed out a few paragraphs explaining what had happened. The new lock, the altered decor, the forged binder, and the fake ownership paperwork listing Darcy as sole proprietor. Then I attached the deed and the agreement. No embellishments. Just the documents and a timeline. I sent it from a clean email account and clicked send. I didn't expect a response for at least a day or two. But that same evening, my phone buzzed with a message. "Victor Blake. I've been waiting for something like this. I'll take it from here." That was all he wrote. I sat there staring at my phone, the quiet still thick in the room. I should have felt relief. Maybe I did. But mostly I felt this deep, slow burn in my chest. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't stormed out. I hadn't touched a single thing in that studio. But now, the fuse was lit. And the right person had the match. The eviction notice went out the following Tuesday. Victor didn't waste time. He had it sent by certified mail and hand-delivered by a local process server. Official letterhead, legal citations, the original deed attached as an exhibit. It read as polite as a sledgehammer. The document gave Edwin and Miriam 30 days to vacate the premises and outline the penalties for trespassing, tampering with locks, and misrepresentation of property ownership. There were also 3 specific lines about the forged shared studio management plan, and how any further use of falsified ownership claims would be escalated to criminal proceedings. I didn't know what Victor charged clients like Google and Chevron, but I knew one thing. He wanted Edwin's head, and he wasn't doing this for the money. Darcy called me that same night. I didn't answer the first time, or the second, but by the third, I figured I'd let her get it out. She skipped hello. "You sent my uncle after my parents?" Her voice was tight, already shaking with tears or rage. I couldn't tell. "I didn't send anyone," I said calmly. "I gave him the documents. He did the rest." "You blindsided us, Logan. You're trying to ruin my family." I laughed, sharp and dry. "Your family forged fake paperwork and changed the locks on property they don't own. And you smiled while they did it." Darcy fell silent for a second. "They were just making it feel like home," she said finally, her voice defensive now. "It was temporary. I told you that." "You told me it was still all in the family," I replied. "That's not the same thing." Her voice cracked. "Do you even hear yourself right now? You're acting like this is war." "No," I said. "War is messy. This is legal." There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Then, in a voice I hadn't heard from her before, cold, almost spiteful, she said, "You want to destroy us. Admit it." "No," I said again, quieter this time. I just stopped letting you all walk over me. She hung up. The next morning, I came downstairs and found her gone. Her keys were missing from the hook, and a small duffel bag was gone from the hall closet. There was no note, no text. I checked my phone. A single message, sent just before dawn. Darcy. Staying with Mallory for a bit. You've made your choice. I stared at it for a while before setting the phone down. I didn't reply, because I had made my choice. For too long, I let my silence be mistaken for weakness, for politeness, for permission. But now the paperwork spoke for me, and the truth was louder than any screaming match ever could be. I didn't think Edwin had the nerve. Not really. He struck me as the kind of man who inflated his chest in a mirror but cowered in the presence of consequence. But 2 weeks after the eviction notice landed in their mailbox, he proved me wrong barely. A police officer showed up at my door on a rainy Thursday afternoon. He was polite, almost apologetic. We received a complaint from a Mr. Edwin Royce alleging harassment and property intimidation, he said, reading from a small notepad. He claims you threatened him with legal force to wrongfully remove him from a shared residence. I blinked. You mean the property I legally own, where he's squatting? The officer nodded. We figured, but we have to follow protocol. I handed him the original deed and the agreement. I even offered to pull up the email chain with Victor and the delivery receipts from the process server. The officer barely had to read past page 1. Looks airtight, he said, tapping the paper. I'll file a false report notice. This won't go anywhere. I thanked him and closed the door, hands cold with the realization that this wasn't over, not even close. That weekend, it got worse. Darcy filed a claim for partial ownership of the loft. I saw the notice in my email inbox, a formal petition to the Tulsa Civil Court requesting that the loft be reclassified as marital property due to emotional investment and shared utility. Emotional investment. Her claim was thin. She cited occasional visits, yoga sessions, dream board nights with her mom. It was all dressed up to sound domestic, like we'd built a life there together. She made no mention of the years I'd owned it before we even met. But the bombshell came attached to the filing, a quitclaim deed. Signed and notarized. It listed me and Darcy as joint owners, and it was supposedly signed last September. Only I never signed it. I stared at the PDF for nearly 10 minutes, heart pounding, while rising in my throat. The signature was close, too close. My name curved the way it did when I rushed through receipts. But the date was off. And the notary? Her cousin, Tasha. Barely 22. Just certified. Still living with her parents and posting motivational quotes in glittery cursive. I called Victor immediately. He didn't even let me finish the explanation. She committed forgery, he said flatly. And used a notary who's a blood relative? I'll handle it. By Monday, Victor had Tasha on a video call. I wasn't on it, but he filled me in after. She cracked within 5 minutes, he said. Didn't even make me work for it. Tasha admitted she'd been told the form was pre-signed, that it was just a formality to speed up some tax paperwork. She'd notarized it without me present, an illegal act on its own, and Darcy had thanked her with a bottle of wine and a hug. Victor recorded everything. She even emailed him a signed affidavit retracting the notarization, stating clearly she'd been misled by family pressure. Victor filed it under perjury protection to shield her from further legal action, provided she didn't recant. The forged deed was officially nullified. But the damage was already done. Darcy had taken it there. Past confusion. Past manipulation. Into criminal territory. And she hadn't even blinked doing it. I sat in my kitchen that night, staring at my phone. My thumb hovered over our wedding photo, still saved in my favorites. Darcy in a pale green dress, smiling up at me like she could never imagine hurting me. I deleted it. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. Because now I finally saw her, not the way she smiled, but the way she schemed. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I got the text. Mallory. Can we meet somewhere quiet? I need to talk to you. It's important. Darcy's younger sister. The quiet one. The only Blake who never asked for favors or offered unsolicited wellness advice. I hadn't seen her since Darcy left, and I hadn't expected to. But something in her message felt different, urgent, but not dramatic. We met at a little diner off I-35. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and laminated menus that hadn't changed in 20 years. I got there early and ordered black coffee. Mallory slid into the booth 5 minutes later, hair pulled back, face tight. I'm sorry to drop this on you, she said, setting her phone on the table. But I can't keep quiet about it anymore. I raised an eyebrow. About what? She glanced around. Darcy. My parents. The loft. All of it. I waited. She took a deep breath, then opened her phone and started scrolling. Back in January, she said, Darcy started telling me how they were going to ease you out of the studio. She said you'd never give it up outright, so they had to guide you emotionally. She turned her phone toward me. An email thread. Dozens of them. Subject lines like cornering Logan, and loft strategy timeline. I scrolled. He's sentimental. We can use that. Make it seem like we're all connected to the space. Once it feels more theirs, he'll loosen his grip. Miriam can curate the interior so it feels less Logan-y. If he reacts, we call it emotional rigidity. If we present it as a shared space and then normalize Darcy as owner, he'll either walk away or look crazy fighting it. Every word sent a fresh chill down my spine. They were planning it? I asked. Mallory nodded. Since before they moved in. At first, I thought it was just one of Dad's dumb ego projects. But when Darcy started talking about flipping the place, getting it appraised, contacting a realtor, I knew it was real. She hesitated, then added, she said if they could get your name off the paperwork, they'd sell it and use the money to pay off Mom's credit cards. Then move somewhere with better feng shui. I stared at her. I can't believe you're telling me this, I said finally. She swallowed. I wasn't going to. I tried to ignore it. Told myself it was just talk. But after the forged deed, after what they did to Tasha, I knew it was going too far. She slid a flash drive across the table. All the emails, screenshots, dates. I backed it all up. I'm not testifying, I can't. But I won't lie for them either. I picked it up slowly, turning it over in my hand like it might break. Why? I asked her. She looked me in the eye. Because I've watched my family weaponize kindness my entire life. And you're the first person who didn't pretend it was okay. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then I nodded. Thank you, I said. You just gave me everything I need. Because now, it wasn't just a dispute. It was premeditated theft with receipts. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, but in mood, sterile, gray, and different. Rows of hard-backed benches, one judge's bench raised above it all, and the low hum of whispers filling the air as people filed in. Victor stood beside me, stoic as ever in a charcoal suit that looked custom-fitted for war. He carried a briefcase, not for show, but because he didn't believe in laptops during litigation. Paper doesn't crash, he said. Across the room sat Edwin and Miriam, both dressed like they were attending a brunch at a golf club. Miriam wore pearls and a fake smile. Edwin wore smugness, like it was sewn into his blazer. Darcy was there, too. She sat at the edge of their table, chin lifted, arms crossed, her expression somewhere between resentment and self-pity. I hadn't seen her in person since she left the house. She didn't look angry. She looked tired. But not the kind of tired that comes from regret, the kind that comes from losing control. When the judge entered, the room snapped into stillness. A middle-aged woman with tired eyes and zero patience. Victor started with the facts. Calm, clean, complete. He handed over the original deed. The agreement Edwin and Miriam signed. A notarized statement from Tasha, retracting the forged quitclaim deed and confirming she had been pressured by family. Then the emails. Victor didn't read them aloud. He simply submitted the flash drive and highlighted a few printed screenshots for the judge. Emotionally corner Logan. Normalize Darcy as the owner, language matters. Once the paperwork's updated, we'll approach a realtor quietly. The judge's eyebrows lifted as she read. Edwin's lawyer stammered something about emotional rights and familial misunderstanding. Miriam whispered urgently into his ear like she was coaching a game show contestant. Then it was Darcy's turn to speak. She stood, shaky but determined. It wasn't about money, she said. It was never about stealing. We just thought Logan didn't value the space. He never went there anymore. Victor cut in smoothly. Your Honor, intent is not in dispute. We have motive, forged documents, and an orchestrated plan to undermine sole legal ownership. The judge nodded, eyes sharp behind her glasses. Miss Blake, she said to Darcy, you claimed emotional investment in the property. Are you aware that your cousin has formally admitted to notarizing a forged deed at your request? Darcy swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. I made a mistake. You didn't make a mistake, the judge said, her voice rising slightly. You forged a legal document. You dragged your own cousin into it. And you allowed your parents to change locks on a property you had no legal claim to. She turned to Edwin and Miriam. I'm referring both of you to the district attorney's office for investigation into attempted fraud and document forgery. Miriam gasped. Edwin opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then, the judge looked at me. Mr. Reed, this court finds in your favor. Full ownership remains with you. Additionally, damages of $42,000 are awarded for legal fees, defamation, and emotional distress. You may also pursue criminal charges separately, if desired. I didn't smile. I didn't flinch. I just nodded. Outside the courthouse, Darcy caught up to me. Logan, she said, breathless. Please just. I didn't think it would go this far. I looked at her for a long moment. You never lost what you never had, I said. You just finally heard no. And I walked away, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because for the first time in years, I was choosing myself over the chaos. And I wasn't looking back. Darcy disappeared from everything after the ruling. She shut down her public profiles first. No more smoothie videos, no more filter-heavy Mindful Monday posts. For a week or two, she resurfaced with vague, self-pitying quotes on private accounts. Some people only love you when you're useful. Sometimes family is just a lesson. But the comment sections didn't go the way she expected. Because Mallory posted the emails. All of them. Screenshots in the replies. Date-stamped proof of manipulation and planning. No commentary, just the facts. And the response? Silence. Then a quiet wave of judgment from the same friends who'd once cheered her on. No one came to Darcy's defense. No one bought the story that she was the victim of a cruel, unforgiving husband. Edwin and Miriam were worse off. They tried to fight the civil judgment, but Victor buried them in paperwork. They missed 2 hearings and ended up forfeiting their appeal. Their retirement condo, paid for in part by a loan co-signed under Darcy's name, was seized in a separate lien judgment. They ended up in a modest apartment just south of Broken Arrow, next to a strip mall and a payday loan shop. Victor called it poetic geometry. I called it justice. As for the studio, I took a few weeks before I went back. I don't know why I hesitated. Maybe I was afraid it wouldn't feel the same. That the space had absorbed too much betrayal to feel like mine again. But it did. Once I unlocked the door and stepped in, it was like the building exhaled. Like it had been waiting for me. I spent a weekend undoing every trace of them. Took down the string lights. Donated the shabby furniture. Painted over the pinkish accent wall they'd added. Rehung my sketches in the order I always liked, left to right, by season. I installed a new keypad, one with fingerprint access. Then I added a final touch. Right above the drafting table, I mounted a hand-carved wooden sign I made myself from a slab of reclaimed pine. Create, don't con. Simple. Honest. Mine. These days, I drive down twice a month. Sometimes more if work's light. I sketch, sip black coffee, listen to records that crackle like firewood. No one interrupts. No one rearranges the furniture while I'm gone. I don't talk to Darcy. I doubt I ever will. Mallory and I still keep in touch. We're not close, but there's a quiet respect there now, like 2 people who shared a storm and helped each other survive it. I don't need much anymore. Just this space. These walls. The light from the windows at noon, and the calm that comes when I put pencil to paper. I reclaimed my peace. Not with shouting. Not with revenge. But with boundaries carved from every lesson they tried to teach me the hard way. And now? Now I sketch in silence. And I leave the door locked.